Hi, my name is Anja Hopfstock. I'm working for the Federal Agency for Cartography and Geodesy in Germany. And I'm giving this presentation on behalf of my colleagues who asked me to give the presentations because they could not come to Helsinki this day. So I'm using a little bit of notes because they prepared the presentation for me. I was not actively involved. But I have a long background working with Eurogeographics, working with data integration, so it should be fine. But I see that I'm a little bit ahead of time, so it's already the 24th, not the 23rd. This presentation is, as Mick introduced, is the third project where we took up a kind of data challenge to meet user requirements and clearly defined user requirements. And taking into account all the experience from the ELF project, from national data providers, also from the coordination and supply, we started to create a core reference data set, and I will come back to this in a moment to briefly describe what was the idea behind this data set, to create a multi-country data set, and what kind of experiences we had when integrating the data and coming with some summarizes to what we need to take into account when we try to set up those data sets. So what Doris introduced right now was a kind of decentralized approach. So we took the national Inspire services, we did in harvesting, and we came up with European location services. And the focus was on services. All the things provided from the national level and as multi-purpose, all topographic Inspire themes and then you have a puzzle, like a pan-European puzzle, if you get all the data and services. So this time we said, okay, the demand is here not for a service, but for a data set. So let's go it in a different way. BKG already has quite a lot of experience of integrating data and creating pan-European data sets from national deliveries. So let's apply this approach for this core reference data set. So from the national services, download the data and then create a physical data set at the end. So the core reference data set is not a service, it is a data set, and it is produced from national services. So we looked for all the downloads at the master level of detail. When we say this is real high resolution data from the members of Eurogeographics. And then at the end, this will be provided not through all the countries, but through one single point of contact. And we make use of the Inspire and European location service data provided by the national mapping agencies. I would not say but we were focusing on very limited content that is of high relevance, as Mick said. It's hydrography and transport network. So to create kind of core content that we were looking into the data model, trying to simplify the Inspire structure and provide it in an easier way. We were looking, as Eva said, the exercise was harmonizing data at the borders. This was also real challenging. And with the centralized data production, we took away a burden from the national data providers with this approach. Trying to come up with quality and data that is proofed with validation and edge matching along the border. So what we mean by easy to use, first of all, it is the content is put down. So we were looking for only a few features, core features for hydrography like water course, standing water, land water boundary. So giving a reference. The same for the transport network. The requirement was to provide transport network, the road network, and the railway network with basic attributes to describe these features. And all this should be provided in a simplified, flat structure. That means we're focusing on the geometry and applying the attributes to the geometry, so that there's no dealing with linear referencing that is implemented in the Inspire network schema, and that there's only direct attribute, no connected tables, or not only for geographic names. This is much easier than to implement like shapefiles in a database and can be provided right away for use in a GIS system. So what were the steps for the production team in BKG? So the production team received the data from the NMCAs. Mainly they received it finally as a data set, not as a service. I will come to that later. If needed, the central production team would do the transformation into the core reference dataset data model. So do basic quality checks, do the edge matching, supported by software and tools, and then assemble the core reference dataset, document it, provide the metadata, so on. So we created a prototype for 3 countries. This includes Austria, Czech Republic, and Slovakia. So there's a little screenshot here from, I don't know if you can see it, so you have the border here, and different content in the different areas. So one of the challenges that you face. So when you start a production, you are starting also with some assumptions, like we heard this morning from the data challenges. All the teams, they had a task, but they had also some assumptions what to expect, what to get. So first of all, we thought the Inspire data is delivered through the Inspire services, focusing on the WFS. The transformation is done by the production team. The content, we thought all content is available. There are no gaps, no data area, something like this. And the data quality is checked by the national data providers. And edge matching would then be the main task of the central production team. So what we learned is that WFS is not suitable for data delivery because it is not suitable for mass data download. So the access is difficult. It could be prevented or it could be restricted and limited to a certain number of features, so you cannot download a whole data set for a whole country. And the connections are not stable because this takes quite a while to download a lot of data, and if the connection breaks down, you start from scratch. It's a little bit frustrating if you sit there the second day, the third day, and you cannot download the data. And in some countries, we looked not only at the 3 countries, but more countries to download the data. There were some complex procedures to register for the download. And then you go to the website, and it is in national language, And then you, yeah, okay, I'm fine. I do not speak Spanish, might be easy, maybe, but Czech and Polish or something else, it's more difficult then. So the recommendations then is for the data providers, we ask them to provide data sets and like a package on an FTP or on a server where you can download it quite easily. And really open up the data, avoid complex registration procedures. This puts kind of excess restrictions. So for the transformation, remember the assumption was that the central production team is going this on behalf of all the national data providers to reduce the workload for them. But it turned out that it is much easier to do it at the national level because the national data providers, they know their data model and then they know the target and then they can adapt wherever it is needed. So with the complex Inspire data model, there's too many things where you can decide you go this way or that way. And the other thing is that the National Inspire implementation is not perfect. So you know what you have done and then you can react on the transformation. So there's not only a recommendation for data providers, but also for the Inspire evolvement for the future. What we learned right now from the implementation of the Inspire data models is that you come from a simple data model and you go for a complex data model and you sometimes go back to a simplified model. And you are losing data, you are losing connections and everything. So it makes the whole process quite complex and difficult. So if you can simplify the data model, it will streamline also the way how to provide the data for the different themes. And for the data providers, what we noticed is Inspire is taken as an obligation. What you do when something is an obligation and you don't see a benefit for yourself, you do it very quickly and then tick a checkbox. Done. You are not thinking about the users, you are not thinking about use cases. You do what you can in a certain amount of time. So, but to provide meaningful content, you need to think and start to think from the user and from the use case. And this would help a lot. Otherwise, we are in a loop. So we provide in basic information, only a feature, no content. And the users say it's not useful. And you say, okay, not useful. But if you provide more content, maybe the user says, this is relevant and this is what I want. And here I can start working with the data. And that might go up then and prove what we do in Inspire. The collaboration with other data providers is very important. And here comes my role as a facilitator of the Inspire Community Forum. Please exchange your experience. Please ask questions. Get into touch with other data providers if you are not sure how to implement Inspire data models. What we also saw, so I have another table. Doris already showed where we all have content. So we did a similar exercise, trying to get all the information from the countries and then comparing and seeing who can provide what regarding the core reference data set. And we noticed quite a lot of lack of information. So it's also something to do with the voidable concept. So all the voidable attributes were mainly empty. And also there is a task to discuss the semantic harmonization. Because at the moment, so you have the attribute, you have the definition, but there is a different perspective what you have at the national level and what is meant in the Inspire data model. So it might end up still with a heterogeneous understanding of the attributes. So in this is then the result is that you have quite different density of content just because of how you fill the data model. So what I already said, make relevant attributes mandatory. So fill it. If you have it, please fill it, even if that is voidable. And the other things are provide as much information as possible. I already said it. Take into account, think from the user perspective, and respect also the recommendations from the UN GGIM exercise to give recommendations on the core content for Inspire, and also the look at the selection criteria. So regarding the data quality, what the team noticed when they have done the quality checks, that even simple quality checks failed. So, like, there is a long list of what we have seen. Geometry errors, gaps, overlapping, adjoining surfaces, semantic errors. So it would be helpful if Inspire would give some recommendations on requirements for data quality, and recommendations for the data provider. So the national source data, the quality needs to be improved or could be improved. Also, you need to check your workflow, because during working with the data, quality elements could be lost. And of course, it is important to document the data quality in the metadata or with the features. This might be something for future, that we can document data quality on a feature level. Very nice. So edge matching, as Eva said, this is something we have to deal with for a while, I think. So what we see is that neighboring countries use different boundary lines. So you cannot edge match, because you don't know where you should meet, on the one line or the other. So if they are apart from each other, then you will have a gap. If they are overlapping, you will have loose ends overlapping the countries. So first of all, this is a lesson learned from the pan-European products. It is first agree on a common boundary line. So respecting the scale, respecting the resolution, and then you can start the discussion where to put things together. So, and edge matching is an obligation or in the Inspire directive. So they have put a task on us. They didn't put it in the technical guidelines, but it is in the directive itself. So, but this needs to be done in mutual consent between the neighbors. But I think we tend to forget this, Article 10 of the Inspire directive. So in summary, simplified data models would help to provide the data. So also to streamline the different data models between the themes, because right now they are like silos next to each other. Make relevant attributes mandatory. And then there's a long list for the data providers. They can take home is deliver meaningful content, make the data available as open as possible, respect the recommendations for core content from the UN GGIM for the Sustainable Development Goals, collaborate with other data providers, and edge match. So bring your data together, not just think in national boundaries, but for Europe. Thank you.